What if I told you there's a $100 billion smart city floating off Malaysia's southern coast? So empty, it echoes. Once pitched as a tropical paradise for 1 million residents, Forest City was supposed to be China's most ambitious overseas megaproject. How did a futuristic dream turn into one of the biggest real estate failures of the 21st century? Subscribe now, because what we're about to see is a tale of ambition, illusion, and a ghost city finally exposed. In the spring of 2014, when whispers of China's Grand Belt and Road Initiative first rippled across the globe, a bold idea took shape within the boardrooms of Country Garden, China's largest private developer. Rather than simply erecting another high-rise somewhere along the coast, they envisioned an entirely new city, a gleaming, self-sustaining metropolis rising from the South China Sea, poised to redefine Southeast Asia's economic landscape. They christened it Forest City, a name that promised both verdant innovation and urban sophistication. In their imaginations, clusters of skyscrapers would be draped in vertical gardens, their glass facades shimmering in the tropical sun. Networks of electric shuttles and drones would ferry residents between artificial beaches, tree-lined promenades, and international schools. And restaurants, boutiques, and business centers would hum with the conversations of 1 million global citizens. It would be Dubai's skyline married to Silicon Valley's spirit, a place where ambitious entrepreneurs could live just steps away from venture capital offices, and where green technology would blossom alongside world-class architecture. Fueled by confidence and an unwavering belief in their model, Country Garden broke down on the first of 4 man-made islands before a single apartment block had tenants. They dispatched massive dredgers to sculpt the seabed, poured concrete foundations for mile-long causeways, and planted saplings that would someday shade bustling plazas. Their philosophy was simple: deliver the infrastructure, then entice investors to follow. Charter flights ferried eager Chinese buyers directly from Shenzhen and Shanghai, all eager to reserve homes they had only glimpsed in glossy brochures. By 2017, sales figures touted that 3/4 of the initial units were spoken for, yet behind the facade of early enthusiasm, cracks were forming. Questions lingered. Would buyers ever take up residence? Would the promised schools open their doors? Would the startup hubs ever see their first pitches? As the years slipped by, Forest City acquired a surreal quality, part ambitious blueprint, part futuristic ghost town. Wandering through its steel-framed towers felt like stepping onto a film set abandoned mid-production. Streets designed for electric trams lay empty, their tracks gleaming under streetlights with no tram in sight. The shopping mall, envisioned as a boulevard of bustling cafes and fashion outlets, echoed with nothing more than the hum of air conditioning. A lone duty-free kiosk sold cigarettes and spirits to the occasional tourist bus, while the playgrounds, complete with pastel swings and climbing frames, remained untouched by the laughter of children. On the man-made beaches, warning signs cautioned against crocodile encounters, a reminder that nature too could reclaim even the most meticulously engineered spaces. In Forest City's silent expanses, the promise of a vibrant international community had evaporated, leaving only a hollow echo of what might have been. It was hardly a mystery why Forest City's vision faltered. Just as Chinese capital had initially surged in, a cascade of policy changes and global upheavals turned off the taps. In 2017, Beijing instituted strict capital controls, making it difficult for mainland investors to funnel funds overseas. Kuala Lumpur tightened visa regulations, curbing the long-term stays that would have filled empty apartments. Then the COVID-19 pandemic ground international travel to a halt, freezing tourism and scuttling the expatriate influx the project so desperately needed. By the time China's own property bubble began to wobble in 2021, Country Garden was already grappling with debts north of $200 billion. Their overseas darling, once valued on paper at a staggering $100 billion, had become a cautionary tale of overreaching hubris, concrete skeletons of uninhabited towers standing as testament to assumptions that had simply failed to materialize. To compound its financial woes, Forest City was also physically isolated. The only ribbon of asphalt linking it to mainland Johor was the very causeway that collapsed in 2023 when a sudden sinkhole swallowed half the roadway, marooning workers and residents alike. With no functional port to speak of, no ferry services, and no public transport options beyond a lonely shuttle bus, the city found itself severed from the world it was meant to connect. Supply trucks rerouted hundreds of kilometers inland, emergency services hesitated at the brink of a broken bridge, and local workers struggled to traverse treacherous makeshift pathways. Far from the global gateway they had promised, The developers created an island fortress, one where the cost of reaching home became almost as prohibitive as the empty apartment facades that stared blankly back at them. In the end, Forest City became the ultimate paradox, a project built to unlock opportunity, yet stranded by the very foundations meant to support it. When Country Garden first unveiled Forest City as the next generation green metropolis, environmentalists dared to dream of a gleaming archipelago rising in harmony with nature. But from the start, reality spelled disaster. In 2014, heavy machinery began churning up the seabed as dredgers hauled sand from distant bays, depositing mountains of sediment directly into the strait without a single ecological impact study. Mangrove forests that had sheltered juvenile fish for centuries disappeared overnight. Once thriving seagrass meadows, vital nurseries for crabs and shrimps, turned to lifeless silt. Singapore's Ministry of Environment formalized its outrage with diplomatic protests, warning that murky plumes of dredged earth were drifting across international waters. Local fishermen, whose families had earned their living on these waters for generations, watched helplessly as their nets came up empty and their boats lay idle in silent harbors. Amid this destruction, Country Garden pressed ahead, building one of its golf courses atop a protected mangrove reserve, bulldozing ancient root systems to craft rolling fairways. By the time environmental watchdogs secured injunctions, the damage was done. Shorelines redefined, biodiversity lost, and an ecosystem's foundation irrevocably altered. In an ironic twist, the city branded as a sanctuary for tomorrow's eco-conscious residents had, in a matter of months, obliterated the very environment it promised to preserve. Yet even as critics derided Forest City's gleaming skyline, its architects pressed on with an ambitious vision of urban renewal. One that, on paper, reimagined concrete jungles as verdant ecosystems. From street level, enormous towers unfurled like living tapestries, their facades bristling with pockets of ivy, philodendron, and ferns that clung to steel mesh as if reclaiming a lost wilderness. Each balcony was a miniature conservatory in its own right. Troughs of soil nourished by rainwater harvesting systems collected on rooftop catchments, while low-energy lights extended daylight hours to every leaf. At dusk, those lights pulsed gently, casting an emerald glow that transformed the city's silhouette into something resembling a forest canopy at twilight. Below those lofty heights, a network of subterranean plants labored in silence. Gray water from every faucet and shower was funneled into treatment chambers lined with reed beds and biofilm-coated membranes where bacteria and aquatic plants worked in concert to strip pollutants and nutrients. Once purified, that water coursed back to the surface through narrow conduits, feeding drip irrigation lines that snaked beneath plazas and courtyards. Here, ornamental grasses swayed in synchronized patterns, their roots anchored in engineered soil mixtures designed to filter air and trap dust. And so these feats of engineering, lauded in glossy brochures and international design journals, felt more like stage props than living environments. The vertical gardens, impressive though they were, seemed suspended between growth and decay, often tended only by automated sprinklers that hissed in the pre-dawn hours. The wastewater loops whispered of closed ecological cycles, yet burst pipes or clogging filters went unnoticed beneath empty corridors. The modular apartments stood ready, keys waiting in lockboxes for residents who never came. Units outfitted with energy-efficient appliances and touchless fixtures that shone under fluorescent lighting but never saw the warmth of a family meal or the swirl of toys across a polished floor. It was as if Forest City had applied an eco-friendly veneer to a hollow core. Its innovations celebrated for their ingenuity, but ultimately stranded in a ghost town of green ambition. The city wore its sustainability like a costume, displaying advanced technologies with pride, yet offering little of the messy, vibrant life those systems were meant to support. In that quiet hush, between the drip of irrigation lines and the distant drone of treatment pumps, the true cost of green became painfully clear. Without people to inhabit it, even the most visionary blueprint remains just ink on paper. To understand why Forest City remained a phantom metropolis, one need only examine the price tag. In 2017, a modest two-bedroom condominium unit carried a price of roughly $170,000, nearly 3 times the average cost of a home in neighboring Johor State, where properties typically exchanged hands for about $60,000. Prospectors of fortune and luxury real estate agents touted the islands as a gateway for wealthy Chinese buyers, a place where capital could park in pristine beachfront apartments while reaping projected returns in property value. Yet for Malaysians and most South Asians, those figures were beyond reach. Local residents watched the cranes pass overhead, constructing towers that felt to them like safety deposit boxes, sealed tightly against the possibility of community life. In Beijing, capital controls tightened, freezing outbound investment and slamming shut the vault of many would-be buyers' ambitions. Country Gardens stubbornly claimed that 80% of units sold but never revealed occupancy rates. Night after night, windows stayed dark, few lights pierced the skyline. It became clear that Forest City had not been conceived as a home for ordinary families or for the cross-border commuters who might shuttle to Singapore. It was designed as a monument to speculative wealth, a glossy veneer of ultra-modern living that in reality served only an exclusive few. Despite its faltering first act, Forest City was granted a second lease on life by the Malaysian government, which still holds a 40% stake in the venture. In boardrooms nestled within Kuala Lumpur's glass towers, officials have brainstormed a revitalization plan that pivots sharply from speculative investment to genuine residency. They've courted sovereign wealth funds from the Middle East and Southeast Asian conglomerates, pitching Forest City as a lifestyle enclave where families can live, work, and study. Proposals for a multi-entry visa aim to lure digital nomads and retirees seeking a tropical haven, while a 15% flat income tax is dangled as an incentive for entrepreneurs to relocate their startups. The most ambitious piece of the puzzle is a planned high-speed rail link set to thread Forest City into the regional network connecting Kuala Lumpur and Singapore, promising commuters a smooth 60-minute journey to two of Asia's financial capitals. Yet even as these initiatives take shape on paper, the city's footprint has been halved, its master plan rewritten to shrink its scale. Will these measures spark a rebirth or merely slow the pace of decline? The answer may rest on whether Forest City can transcend its legacy of greenwashing and become, in fact, a thriving community rather than an architectural curiosity. Forest City stands today as a cautionary monument to ambitious overreach. Conceived as a $100 billion statement of China's global reach, a dream of building a million-strong population from reclaimed sea, it now drifts eerily between ambition and abandonment. In a place of bustling markets and crowded promenades, one finds only the occasional patrol of security vehicles and the distant call of waterbirds drawn to the few remaining mangrove islets. Where conventions once buzzed with talk of net zero energy buildings and tomorrow's sustainable urban model, now there are just the hollow hulks of show flats and the quiet hum of unmanned maintenance drones. The vision of an eco-paradise, replete with smart grids and vertical farms, remains on the drawing board. And instead, wildlife cautiously returns to niches it once occupied. Crocodiles bask in overgrown marshes, drawn by the silence, and the glint of streetlights off empty liquor shops underscores the surreal promise of tax-free indulgence. Forest City forces us to confront a fundamental question. What becomes of a city built merely as a symbol, without the human heartbeat that defines true urban life? In its lonely streets and unplugged facades, there lies both a warning and an invitation, reminding us that real cities must be more than grand designs. They must be places for people, their dreams, and their daily lives. They called it the city of the future, but maybe the future didn't want to be built on sand. Would you live in a place where the skyline shines but the streets are empty? Share your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching this video with us, and catch you in the next one.